Welcome to the Black Entrepreneur Experience podcast, inside the business, buzz, and brilliance of Black entrepreneurs. Here is your host, Dr. Francis Arlene.
What happens in Vegas goes all over the world on Black Entrepreneur Experience, episode number 532.
Thank you for joining us as we elevate the Black Entrepreneur Experience by interviewing CEOs, thought leaders, innovative thinkers, and Black entrepreneurs across the globe. I'm your host, Dr. Francis Ince, formerly Richards, and I want to share with you today, are you ready for steady revenue and clear steps, not theory, into government contracts? You want to lean in and listen to Malcolm Ali, aka Mr. Purchase Order, founder of Procure Force. Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me.
I've given our audience such a brief bio. Why don't you fill in the gaps? Share with our audience what you'd like them to know about you and your business.
I've been in the industry for roughly about 20 years, working on the procurement side as a government procurement officer, a procurement manager, logistics coordinator. So I was essentially the guy who would evaluate the proposals when they came in. And ultimately, I was the guy that was responsible for awarding contracts. And in my career, I've awarded over $500 million in contract dollars to businesses. Ultimately, over the course of that time, very, very small percentage of the businesses that I've awarded monies to look like you and I. I'd probably say less than 10%. And it wasn't a situation where I can reach out to the business and say, hey, you forgot to sign this form or you didn't include this. That would have been unethical with me being in the industry. So I made the decision to walk away from a six-figure career and decide to help people that look like you and I to go after these government contracts and actually be able to win them. The thought is often, I'm too small, I'm not good enough, I don't have enough experience, but that's farthest from the truth.
Let's step back a moment when you talk about individuals that look just like you and I. And we're in a different climate right now. Right. And someone's saying, I don't know, Mr. Purchase Order, should I jump in to government contracting now?
Yes. What we're seeing now is a little bit of sleight of hand misdirection. On the news, you're generally hearing federal, and in that we're ignoring state and local dollars. As an example, the state of Georgia just last year in 2024, between the state and its 7 largest cities, spent almost $100 billion. So federal isn't everything. The Trump administration or the administration, they control federal laws, and we have something in place called federalism that does not allow them to come in and make decisions on the state and local level. While they're canceling contracts and getting rid of programs and DEI initiatives on the federal side, they still exist on the state and local side, and they're crying for the taking. So don't be misdirected, with what you're seeing on the news. It's plenty of money and opportunity still in the government contract space.
You've had many success stories.
Right.
Share and only share what you can share. Share with us a success story most recently that you're proud of or that comes to mind.
I generally have a class of about 10 small businesses that I work with. And one of those businesses was on the brink of shutting down. The young lady was Ubering, actually, to sustain her household. And she called me crying. Now, I'm a big guy, right? So she almost had me cry, but she called me crying. And I thought something was wrong. And, I'm like, hey, what's going on? How can I help? And she said, well, you're the second person that I called after my family. I wanted to thank you. She said, just to let you know, I'm on somebody's Ring camera right now. She was in the middle of a delivery when she got the email saying that she had been awarded a $2.6 million contract. right? She was a student, and when we had initially talked about it, she wasn't going to bid on it. We talked through it for about an hour or so, and she finally said, "Hey, I'm going to throw caution to the wind. I'm going to bid on this contract. I know I have the experience to do it. I know it looks a little intimidating, but I'm going to do it anyway." And she did it. And actually, tomorrow's 17th. I think it gets confirmed tomorrow by the Board of Commissioners for that $2.6 million contract.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Let's talk about you starting your business. How long have you been doing it independently of walking away from the six figures?
Walking away from my job, I've been at it for about a year. The business has been in existence for 2 years. Funny story. I didn't plan on getting into this business. We kind of fall into things, and I was helping out with the project with the Urban League of Greater Atlanta, and my daughter has a business, and I had gone to them and said, "Hey, my daughter has a business. Here's the idea." And I was talking to one of the business coaches over there, and I was talking to him about my experience, and he's like, "No, you don't need to do that. You need to be doing this. We have people who you can help. Would you mind teaching a lunch and learn?" And I taught a lunch and learn, and from there, it was no turning back.
Absolutely. Talk about that opportunity. There's a lot of risk in business, and there's a lot of risk and rewards. Talk about that moment that was extremely risky for you, and what was your takeaway?
So for me, I work in a heavily regulated industry. So the risk for me was working in the industry and still trying to help business owners get into the industry. It's a matter of ethics. You can't really have a personal relationship with the person that you're helping bid on contract that may be within your organization or maybe with a sister organization where the purchasing officer. So for me, it was a balance: either stay in my 9 to 5, my day job, and don't help as many people and limit where they can bid and what they can bid on, or walk away from that day job, walk away from that, that false sense of security and step away from that ethical conundrum and be able to help more people on a broader scale. So for me, it was a matter of either going full force into my business or leaving the business and actually staying employed. And for me, it really wasn't an option.
And talk about that moment when you did the day quit, when you talk about that false sense of security, talk about walking away.
I think I learned early on that people get into positions where they believe that if I'm punching the clock and I'm getting a paycheck, that they're secure, their bills are going to be paid. But the reality of it is you're putting the responsibility of feeding you and your family in the hands of someone else. They can just as easily come into your office Monday morning and say, "Hey, we're laying everyone off," and that paycheck is gone. So for me, the decision was very, very simple: have this person in charge of my destiny, or walk away and help some other businesses that look like you and I fulfill theirs. And it was a simple decision.
Awesome. And what do you feel, Malcolm, is your zone of genius?
Being able to translate government speak into a language that we can understand. We don't all speak legal speak. We don't all speak as if we graduated from an Ivy League college with an MBA. So I translate that into something that they can understand. One of the biggest complaints about the government space is they pull up a 50, 60-page solicitation and don't understand anything that's on it.
Who's your ideal client?
My ideal client is the small business owner with not a ton of resources, that is underestimated, that is underrepresented, that wants to go after something bigger, but don't know how.
Okay. I want you to have a monologue. I want you to name this person, living or not. Malcolm, they've inspired you so much. Who is that person? Name them. And what are you saying to that person?
John Hope Bryant, he basically gave me a clear understanding that it's not about people in politics, it's about numbers, right? For me, I looked at it politically, the man is keeping us down, but it's more about numbers. If we're not bidding on the contracts, if we're not going after the larger contracts, we're simply not going to get them. And those numbers can't count toward our bottom line. A lot of what he says is basically built in numbers. It's rooted in numbers, and numbers don't lie. So that's kind of where I live. I live in the numbers. There's disparities in the minority community as it relates to government contracting. I'm attacking those numbers head on.
Absolutely. Who are your top two influencers and what lessons did they teach you?
So I would have to say, well, John O'Brien is one, and the two brothers from Earn Your Leisure. I think watching that opened up a world that I wasn't previously privy to. There's guys that look like you and I who's out there doing it. There's women that look like you and I that's just out there doing it, and they're sharing the wealth, they're sharing the information, and it showed that we're not living in a world of gatekeepers. There's people that's out there that's sharing the information. So, those two platforms I watch pretty regularly.
Okay. I like to really focus on attitude of gratitude. And I call this a thank fest. And I want you to have at it. Thank those individuals and people who have impacted your life.
Well, first and foremost, I always got to give honor to God, because without him, I wouldn't be where I am. My mother is my Shiro. She passed when I was 19, and my mother had a fifth grade education, but she was the smartest woman I ever met. Before I left home when I was 15. She said to me, you need to know three people in your life and have them close to you. She said, you need to know a doctor, a lawyer, and a politician. And I never really understood it when I was younger, but my three close friends are, doctors, lawyers, and politicians, and I'm surrounded by them. But in doing that, I was invited to rooms that I otherwise would never have been in. I'm thankful to her. I'm thankful to my mentors. The 181st Legislative of the state of Pennsylvania, W. Curtis Thomas, was a mentor for me. He was a quasi-father for me. And there was people like that in my life who shaped and molded who I am.
Malcolm, what is something that we don't know about the purchasing order or government contracts as business owners that we should know?
You are your experience. We generally will look at a solicitation and it'll say that the business needs to have 10 years experience or 15 years experience. And many of us go into an industry that we've been working in all of our lives. So your business may have been around for 2 years, but you might have 25 years experience in the industry. So when you're drafting that proposal, it should be crafted so that it reflects that 25 years of experience. Because experience is experience, whether it's you running that business or you working for someone else. It's all about completing a particular service task or providing a product. If you have experience in that, doesn't matter whether or not it was with your own business. All they care about is the length of time that you've been doing a thing. So don't be deterred when you see something that says, hey, you need to have 10 years experience. They're not asking you to be in business for 10 years. They're asking for you to have 10 years experience.
That's good. That's a great nugget. What problem exists in the world today, Malcolm, that you would like to solve?
I'd like to solve the wealth gap. The wealth gap is, it is comprised of a lot of different things, home ownership, education, and finance. I'd like to solve those things bit by bit and piece by piece. You have people who never really learned finance, budgeting, economics when they were growing up, and they didn't get it in school. We kind of have to start working our way. I think we have to start working our way backwards. Teach the adults so they can teach the children, and then that way they're coming up in a household where they're familiar with finance and economics and things of that nature. But I definitely like to address the wealth gap.
Advice you wish you had followed.
Certifications hold as much weight in certain industries as a degree, and learn a trade. Wasn't really big on college as a kid. You know, one of my mentors basically said, hey, if college isn't for you, it's cool. Go and learn a trade, right? You don't want to learn a trade, load up on certifications. Those certifications are going to carry you far in the future. And at the time, you know, I was living during a day where a degree was pretty much everything. You could walk in with no experience with a degree and get a job over someone that had 20 years experience. But now the tide has turned a bit. And if you're certified up, if you have a bunch of certifications, if you learned a trade, you're in good shape. Had I done that 20 years ago, I'd be a multimillionaire.
And speaking of certifications, we see a lot of initials and after your name. Share with our audience your certifications.
I am a certified Georgia purchasing manager. I am a certified professional public buyer, and I am certified by the NIGP, which is the National Institute for Governmental Procurement, as a certified professional purchaser.
Thank you for that. Let's take a snapshot of the last 30 days. What was your biggest win and how did you celebrate?
Just last week or week before last, I had a client win that $2.6 million contract. Just yesterday, I spoke with a client who I hadn't talked to in a while. I just decided to reach out to her. She had won a $400,000 contract, and she's actually just coming back from New York. She was selected as a Goldman Sachs fellow. So in the last 30 days, those are my two biggest wins as it relates to my client base.
And how did you celebrate?
I went harder. You know, my celebration is going for more wins. I want the landscape of business to look different today than it will 20 years from now when my daughter is in business. So when I get those wins, it just pushes me to go harder. So each instance I, you know, went online and started looking at the procurement boards and finding other stuff that I can pitch to other clients to get them wins that are equal to or greater than what we've already accomplished.
What is your long-term goal? What do you want to accomplish?
I want, and I know it's ambitious. I want to change what the Fortune 100 looks like. I want to change what the ownership of the businesses on the Fortune 100 looks like. I'm a realist. I believe in sociology. So I believe that people flock towards people who look like them. So if we have more CEOs on the Fortune 100 that looks like us, there'll be more VPs that look like us. There'll be more COOs or CFOs that look like us who will eventually go and start other companies. So I want to build some multi-million-dollar companies and change the landscape.
How do you define success, Malcolm?
I define success by changing lives. I want to rewrite the stories of minority business owners, the business owners that look like you and I. So I've been successful when I can tell stories like the one that I told earlier, where someone is on the brink of collapse and they wake up one morning and they have $1 million or multi-million-dollar cash cow to keep their business running and support their family.
And talk about that aha moment when you knew you were going to be successful.
My first, so I'd never really taught a procurement workshop before. You know, shout out to John Pascal at the Urban League of Greater Atlanta, who kind of strong arm me into doing it. I never taught a procurement accelerator before, and I did a 4-week lunch and learn. And the young lady called me. She got on my calendar after the lunch and learn, and she said, "Hey, I kind of understand what the contracting landscape looks like, but I don't know how to approach negotiating contracts. I can use some pointers on brushing up these proposals that I'm writing." We went through maybe a 2-hour session. And a few months later, Mr. Pascal called and reached out to her for an update. And he said, "Hey, have you won any contracts?" And she said, "Yeah." And he says, "Well, how much?" She said, "Which one?" So that for me was the point where I realized, hey, man, you got something here.
Now, at that point, Malcolm, when that happened, were you actually still employed or were you doing hybrid?
I was hybrid. So I was doing this business at night and I was kind of burning the candle at both ends because I was working a job from 8 to 5. And then from 6 to nearly 10 at night, I was taking client meetings and going over procurement strategies and reviewing solicitations.
Let's say you lost everything.
Mm-hmm.
You had to rebuild in 30 days. What industry would you rebuild and why?
And I know I have a bias here, but I would definitely go to the government space. The reason for that is there are contracts that require no experience. It requires networking. So if you're in a position where you can sit down, make some calls, talk to some people, influence some folk, if you have good sales acumen, then those solicitations that are product based, you can build the relationships to be able to provide those products and never have to put your hands on them. If I was in a position where my credit was fair and I lost everything, then I would get a net 30 account with a supplier and I would get a wholesale net 30 account and I would find a government entity that's buying what that particular supplier is selling. And I would have those items drop shipped to the government agency and no money would ever have to exchange hands until a check is being sent to me.
What is one valuable lesson you wish you knew before starting your business?
I've been in this game for a very, very long time. And, I can't count the amount of days I've gone home and I've said things like, hey, this guy lost out on $1 million contract because he forgot to get a document notarized, right? Had I decided to do what I'm doing 10 years ago, a lot of minority small businesses would be in a much, much better position.
What is the biggest challenge you would say for yourself personally being an entrepreneur?
Trust. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people in social media that runs companies that are relatively similar to mine that doesn't always give good information. And then there's some companies that really don't fulfill their obligations at all. So you run into clients who are very, very skeptical about giving you their money without getting the results first. So for me, it's a sprint to build a client base that I can verify and show, hey, you can submit an open records and it'll show you that this client of mine got this contract. So my heavy lift is earning client trust up front. Because frankly, somebody walks over to you and tell you, hey, I'm going to make you $1 million is a little hard to believe. So
Absolutely. Let's talk about AI, artificial intelligence. Tell me your take on it and if and how you're using it currently in your business.
Love it. Love it. Love it. I use AI on almost a daily basis. Right now, I am in the process of building an evaluation engine for solicitations. And what it'll essentially do is I'll be able to upload a solicitation to the AI and I'll be able to upload a company profile and it'll put out as a go or no go score on whether or not they should go after that contract and what the feasibility is of them winning. It'll also give them a report on how to increase their score. If you need to partner or team up with someone, it'll actually tell you to do that. Also, a part of my workshops, I also teach small business owners to use AI to assist them in writing their proposals. Your proposal should be void of fluff. 60 pages in a proposal where only 20 of them is providing information that's necessary to bid. I teach them to use AI to kind of cut through the fluff and speak directly to the scope of work.
What have you not done in life that you dream about often that you would like to do?
Building a universal procurement process or policy in Africa, going across the pond and building a unified procurement system. You hear a lot, and not just in Africa, it's in a lot of countries where, there's payola and backdoor deals, and just to be able to build a unified procurement system where everybody gets a fair shake. Solicitations are going out, people are bidding fairly, and the person who actually wins the bid actually gets the work. Africa is going to be my first stop when I decide to go across the pond.
And you talked about the technology that you're building. When do you plan to have it released or the beta on it?
I am about 60% of the way through. My partner and I are still writing the code, so we're looking at the top of the year to have a beta GPT out and available for clients to take advantage of.
Malcolm, what, if anything, keeps you up at night?
Missed opportunities. I work in an industry that is very, very deadline driven. You see a solicitation, it closes at 3 p.m. At 3:01, that opportunity is gone. And if it's a 5-year contract, that opportunity is gone for 5 years. Just not just for myself, but for my clients, not missing opportunities. And the fact that they sometimes do, and for very, very small reasons, sometimes keeps me up at night.
Someone's listening to this interview and they're saying, yeah, Malcolm, I have tried. And just like you mentioned, there are so many people out there that talk about that they can help you through this government contracting. I like what you said, that it's in reference to it is a specific recipe, it is a strategy. I remember my own personal experience working with several organizations, and they are saying that they can help me through the government contracting, how to get a purchase order. And they are constantly just sending me the information that I can get offline. Someone's
Right.
listening, frustrated. Talk to them specifically.
I guess the first thing is when you're thinking about working with someone, what they've done in the past means everything. The difference between the government space and most other industries is you can actually check their credentials via open records. So if they say, hey, I've won my clients $50 million in contracts, okay, give me the names of the clients and tell me where they won the contracts. I can submit an open records myself and confirm that those companies have actually won those contracts. Another thing is 90% of the individuals in my industry are just like my clients. They've worked on the outside. They've written some proposals. They've won a few contracts, and they've pretty much deemed themselves an expert. I, on the other hand, started on the inside. I'm the purchasing officer. I'm the purchasing manager. I route the solicitations. I've approved these solicitations. I went in front of the board and have gotten confirmation for these contract awards. I personally signed off on POs. There's a ton of them out in the industry with my signature on the bottom of the PO. Me being in the industry, I understand what I'd be looking for when a proposal comes in, and I understand what's missing when I have to deem one of those proposals non-responsive because certain documentation is missing. So I take those 20 years of experience and I roll in all of the missed opportunities and I make sure that those gaps are filled.
How do you make impact daily?
So that's kind of to that missed opportunity thing. A lot of clients of mine and small business owners are generally in a position where they're working a day job and trying to get their business off the ground. They don't have time to scour through bid boards and bid houses and things of that nature. So I make an impact by doing that for them. Throughout the day, they might check their email and see something that they're interested in that I sent them that they otherwise wouldn't have found because they're punching the clock somewhere else.
Let's talk about legacy. Malcolm, when it's all said and done, how do you want to be remembered?
As somebody that changed the landscape of businesses that's been around for hundreds of years has a mix of business to consumer, business to business, and business to government. I want to be the guy that educated our community and let them know that doing business with the government, doing business with large corporations and their procurement teams is possible, and you don't have to be a big multi-million-dollar company to do it.
You mentioned your daughter. Talk about fatherhood and managing a business.
Oh man. So my daughter sees me grinding on a daily basis, and she just turned 8, and she's a business owner. She owns a apparel company called Somo Apparel. She sees me going after it, so she goes after it, and I love every minute of it. My son, who's 22, is currently in the military, and he actually does procurement in the military. When he comes home and he decides to retire, he'll be right next to me doing what I'm doing, but he'll be on the federal and military side of it. So he's rolling right into that family legacy.
Awesome. And we want to say to your son, thank you for serving and protecting. And we want to say to your daughter, give a shout out, say her name, and actually say the name if you feel comfortable to your son and your daughter's business.
Absolutely. My daughter's business is Somo Apparel, style of my own. And my daughter's name is Morgan. She basically has a t-shirt business that displays characters that look like you and I that are not in positions that are not normally in positions of power, doctors, lawyers, politicians. And those t-shirts feature coloring book pages that kids can color in. Parents can wash them out and they can color them in again next time they go out.
That's brilliant. Talk about mental health, mental wellness, and managing your business.
Oh, mental health. My wife gets on me all the time. I do not sleep. And I take on the weight of the world because for me, it's not business, it's mission. My business is very, very mission heavy. I always feel like that if a business that I'm working with is failing, I'm failing. I'm often told that I have to do things to de-stress. So, I get out of the house. I like to eat. I'm a foodie. I'm a big guy. So I like trying new places and therapy. I sit with a therapist once a month. Nothing's wrong. But for me, it's maintenance. You maintain your car, you get a oil change or the brakes change. As human beings, we need maintenance as well. So I see a therapist once a month.
I like that. And shout out to your wife and say her name in reference to supporting you in that. And I want you to talk about marriage, money, and managing a business.
My wife, name is Sophia, and she has a checkbook because I get a little out of hand sometimes. But ultimately, it's a balancing act. In every relationship, one person is better at a certain task than others. She's much, much better at organizing and budgeting than I am. So she keeps an eye on the books. She looks at the money. My money goes into our family account and she takes it from there. I don't even have to look at it. It's about being with and finding somebody that you trust and you plan to each other's strengths. When it comes to those stressful things like battling out things legally, she gives that to me. So, it's a balancing act and it works well for us.
Malcolm, I want to switch roles here.
Mhm.
If you conducted this interview, what is the one question you would have asked yourself? I want you to ask the question and answer it.
How do I find these opportunities, or what does the government buy? I think that's one of the biggest concerns with business owners. They think that they provide a product or service that the government doesn't pay for. The government buys everything. I just saw a solicitation the other day for bologna. The government buys everything. My very, very first client was a barber, and he did not want to cut a check for me. And it took me less than 5 minutes to find a solicitation online for the Juvenile Justice Center where they were putting out a solicitation for a barber to come in and cut the kid's hair. The government buys everything: bologna, beef jerky. I've literally seen it all. So key is checking with your local government to see what they have available contractually first, because that's going to be a big deal for you. They thrive on local small businesses. So get registered with your local government, become a local small business enterprise, do business with your local government first, and then branch out, start looking at the county level, at the state level, look at partner systems, look at partner cities, go after it. You provide a valuable product or service that the government will pay for.
Is there a social cause tied to your company?
Yes, so we do consulting or run procurement accelerators for the Urban League of Greater Atlanta. And we've done some consulting and some purchasing accelerators for Operation Hope as well, which was a big deal for me because I'm a fan of John Hope Bryant. But those are the two that we've worked with recently. And upcoming in November, we'll be working with the National Minority Small Business Development Corporation, the NMSDC, for their conference in Miami. So I'll be speaking there for that. But my cause is heavily leaning towards the minority-owned small business community.
Appreciate that. We've come to the part of our interview. It's called the Rapid Round of Fun. I'm going to ask you a series of questions, and I'd like you to give me very quick answers. If there's something you desire not to answer, feel free to say pass. Are you ready for the Rapid Round of Fun?
Absolutely.
Your first job.
Taco Bell.
You relax doing what?
Going to the range.
The last movie you saw.
Terminator 2.
Your favorite singer or rapper.
Favorite singer is Donny Hathaway. Rapper is KRS-One.
Your favorite dance song.
Hakuna Matata.
What food you eat every week, no matter what?
Chicken.
Work out or hit the couch?
Hit the couch.
Malcolm Ali, thank you for joining us on Black Entrepreneur Experience Podcast. Before we let you go, share with our audience the best way for them to connect with you, to do business with you. Feel free to leave all your social media handles.
So you can reach me online at www.mrpurchaseorder.com. You can reach me on Instagram at Mr. Purchase Order. You can reach me on TikTok at Mr. Purchase Order. I'm very, very unique. And LinkedIn at Malcolm Wickchard. So I am pretty much the same across all platforms with an exception of LinkedIn.
Thank you, Mr. Purchase Order. that is a wrap.
Thank you for listening and subscribing to Black Entrepreneur Experience. We would love for you to leave a review and rating on iTunes and share with your friends. For show notes and more episodes, go to www.beepodcast.com. Join us next Wednesday, and remember, green is the new black. So keep your bank accounts and your business in the black.